We are going to call the Western Placer Waste Management Authority meeting of April 4th to order. And we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Director Andrea.
Right. Salute pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Here.
Director Gore,
Here.
Director Halden,
Here.
Director Alvord,
Here.
Chairman Landon.
Here. And would you please read the statement of meeting procedures?
Welcome to the Western Placer Waste Management Authority meeting of April 4th, 2024. Agendas are available on the table outside this meeting room. If you are here to speak on a matter not on the agenda, you may do so during public comment. The board is not permitted to take action on items addressed under public comment. All items on the agenda will be open for the public to address before final action is taken. Accessibility information is provided on the meeting agenda. Please turn off or put in silent mode all cell phones and other electronic devices. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to make a comment on anything not on the agenda? Okay, thank you. And moving on to item 6, announcements and information reports from directors. Any reports?
No.
Oh.
Okay. Report from the executive director.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Landon. We do have one item that I'm going to turn it over to Will. You might notice that there's some items on your dais that aren't normally there, so I'm going to turn it over to Will, let him talk about that a little bit.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Chairman Landon, directors, I have in front of you a little project for you tonight. So at Director Albert's suggestion, it would be really interesting if the new MRF, or at least components of the new MRF, were able to recycle the old MRF itself. So what you see in front of you is the yellow panels that were cut during the demolition of the old MRF that had been heavily degreased and cleaned, I will add.
Thank you.
You have a white paint Sharpie in front of you. Please feel free to write whatever you would. Well wishes for the new MRF, whatever. And then we will be recycling it in new C&D. Emily and I will be taking the video. The material will be loaded into new C&D and will most likely be recycled and picked by the ferrous metal magnet on there. So that's the first part of this little project. And then the second is a little keepsake for your offices of the outgoing MRF. It's kind of the first generation of star screen. These stars will not be used in the new MRF itself. There are new and improved star screens going in, totally different design. These are from the new old stock, so they're clean, not used. And they're kind of nice little item of showing, you know, where we've been, where we're going to. A reminder of the WAPMA, so hope you enjoy.
Oh, that's
Thank
cool.
you.
Thanks. Great idea.
I have a question. They're called star screens. What are they called?
So the common name is star screen. So what they do, they'll be in a box of rotating shafts of elevation, and they're primarily designed to separate your two-dimensional material, papers, cardboards, and other flat fiber products from your three-dimensional material, where the two-dimensional material will ride on top of those stars as they spin to be separated at a later point of the MRF, while the three-dimensional falls through the holes themselves.
And what year what circa are they?
As for the new old stock, I don't know the exact vintage of those individual stars. They were pretty new because I did get them from
Okay.
the spare parts. However, this implementation, this equipment was added to the MRF during the 05-06 expansion itself.
Okay.
Great.
Not that old.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank
This
you.
is really fun and a lot of pressure to come up with.
I know. I was
good
like,
to write on.
suggestions for.
I know, a joke. I don't know.
Yeah.
This,
Okay.
this one better get retrieved.
Right.
Right.
Okay, great. Anything else, Kevin, on that? Okay. And moving on to the auditor's report, Mr. Sisk.
I think they should give us classes on how to turn on microphones. Right? Like, it's one of those things that.
Good evening, members of the Authority Board. Andy Siss, Placer County Auditor Controller. Thanks for allowing me to present the audited financial statements for the Authority for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2023. I always like to cut right to the chase, which is really the independent auditor's report, which is why you engage an outside firm to do your audit. In their opinion, the financial statements are free of material misstatement, and they're prepared, of course, in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. That's what we like to see, so it's a clean audit opinion. I think it's also important to know you got this little paragraph in the back that at the end of the report that talks about the internal control report. There are no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the internal controls. There were no non-compliance issues noted. So that's always a pleasant surprise to see, especially with the authority's financial statements. As I took a look at the financial statements, really looked on the balance sheet. They call it the statement of net position, but most people call it the balance sheet. And your current ratio is still very healthy when you look at your current assets to current liability ratio, even though the authority issued some debt, some bonds, which drove that ratio a little lower. It's still about 6-to-1, and 2-to-1 ratio is really what you want to see in the marketplace. So this is a really well-run organization. I say it all the time when I come. So kudos to the team for a job well done, and we couldn't do it without them. I know we prepare the financials, but we rely on Eric Otto and Becky Correa to kind of help feed the information that goes into these financial statements. And I know at some point the board is planning to hire a GM, and I think it's really critical for me to reinforce again how important the role of Becky Correa is to the operations of the authority, and you'll need the equivalent of someone like a Becky when you do make that decision on a new general manager. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from board members?
I just had a curious one. The GAP you mentioned, doesn't the government use something different than GAP? Isn't there a different acronym?
Well, there's, everybody follows generally accepted accounting principles, but when they issue their internal control compliance report, government auditing standards. There's also generally accepted auditing standards, which everybody follows, but governments have a second set of standards also to follow.
Got it.
A little more rigid. They call it the Yellow Book.
Okay, any other questions?
No questions, but Andy, I think I said this the other day. I just really appreciate you and your team working with our authority, with other JPAs in the county, so that we can actually, we had an outside auditor, but we couldn't have done this without your team's help. And so really appreciate the hard work, Becky's hard work, and our team's hard work, because as I read through the report this afternoon, I was like, wow, well, we're in a good place, which is a very good thing.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Okay, anyone else?
Thank you. I would agree with that. Thank you.
Yes, I will echo that as well. We're very fortunate to have you and your team helping us. Is there any public comment on this? Okay, great. Thank you, Andy.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
6D, financial reports.
Thank you, Chair. Your board has the financial reports through February in your board packet, and we continue to track above our projected revenues and below our projected expenses. And particularly if you take out on the revenues, you take out the one-time adjustment to the closure post-closure fund, we're still running about $370,000 ahead of budget on revenues. That's great. And then on expenses, if you take out the capital projects, which are kind of an anomaly, and just look at the O&M, the operating expenses, we're about $90,000 below our projected cost to this point. So looking very solid through February. And with that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, any questions?
No.
Okay, moving on to monthly tonnage reports.
Thank you, Chair. Your board has the monthly tonnage reports through March in front of you. We did come in just a little bit lower than projected on revenues for the month of March, but overall for the year, we're still tracking, as I noted, above our projections for revenue. Tonnage-wise, most of the tonnages were at or above our projections, kind of where we think they should be right now. The two big exceptions are C&D and inerts. Those still tend to trend lower than our projections. We're looking into that. It may be weather related, since that's mostly construction type trade, related deliveries. Nothing to be concerned about, but it certainly suggests that in this latter half of the year that we're going to be trending below our projections for those materials. So with that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have one question. Thank you, Eric. and that is just with the C and D, right? It's trending lower, and it's not a whole lot, but I was wondering if that had anything to do with all the change in facilities, and I'm just curious. I mean, as we've been.
No, it's a fantastic question. As I was prepping for this and trying to tease out from the data, why we could be projecting lower. Are we seeing changes in customer use of the facility? And so then what I did is I looked through the lens of mixed waste in general, and I combined MSW and C&D because it's the same tipping fee. It's still mixed waste. And when you combine those two material types, we're actually very, very close on our projections. So we're tracking ahead in MSW right now and below in C&D. That may be a reflection of how we're operating the facility and moving materials to different portions of the facility to ensure that we have capacity to process them. So again, it could be something that's external to this facility that's resulting in those trends, or it could be how we're processing the materials here. Or it could be a combination thereof.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Anyone from the public have any comments? Do I have to take public comment on that one? I don't know. But there isn't, so we'll move on. Okay, number F, facility projects update with Will.
Good evening again, directors. So this monthly project update is something that the WAPMA will be sharing with you every month, as we have 4 major construction projects, not just FCCs on site. So I'd like to go through them. The biggest one, and probably the most dynamic, as you know, is FCC's construction project. Like I said, it's a very dynamic project, and it touches every single waste processing operation across our site, from MSW, C&D, green waste, so a lot going on there. So FCC commissioned new C&D back in January. Since then, they've been processing MSW across those lines to make way for the demolition facility processing. Starting last month, they started operating 2 shifts at new C&D to process the majority of the MSW tonnage while they're doing demo. So that has been in progress for almost a month now. For the green waste area stag piles improvements, we received blowers in February 12th, and right now it's waiting for more electrical components to be finalized. The maintenance building is under construction. It's anticipated to be done sometime in June this summer. And then the ADA improvements, I don't know if you have noticed outside, they are progressing, and I've been assured that they will be at least complete on the WAPMA side, sidewalk side, by April 13th, that Saturday big trash bash that we're doing for the community. So very excited to hear that and seeing the progress. Like I said, it is a dynamic environment and a dynamic project out there. Demolition, while it was originally scheduled to be done this week, has been looking like it'll wrap up 2nd to 3rd week of April as well. And the demo is being phased, so it's not like the project has to wait for the entire demolition to be done. The construction, the general contractor, concrete crews, and Van Dyke are all chasing the demolition as it happens. So work is happening simultaneously in the MRF while demo is still underway. And then phase 3B, we've reviewed all the plans, and I believe FCC has submitted permits for that next phase. And that would be the covered area static piles out there for the organic fraction that's recovered from the MSW facility, as well as the major traffic improvements on site to make everything flow in a safer circular direction.
Can I just have you repeat when the piles are going to be taken care of? What did you just say? What was the date?
Oh, the covered area stack piles?
Yes,
so
the covered area.
Right now, I believe FCC has submitted those plans for permitting. I believe that construction will begin sometime this summer as well.
So hopefully,
But
is the anticipation by the end of the year, or does it go into next year?
it would go into, by the end of the year, by that February 20th deadline for the entire project to be done.
Okay, February
So-
next year.
Yep. And parts have already been delivered, major components, the Gore cover system, that huge sleeve that goes over the cover area stag piles. The components of those have been delivered so far. So back in December, we did have a conversation with FCC management regarding some of the delays that staff had noticed on the project. And, as we move into, the bigger phases of the project, the MSW MRF and beyond, as we draw closer to the deadline, FCC has reiterated that project is tracking, although there's been delays, they're tracking on schedule, and that they will meet the deadline, that February 20th, 25 major deadline pursuant to the design build agreement. Moving on to the Module 6 liner project, probably the second largest construction project on site. liner began laying down in Module 6. I believe some of your directors have had a chance to see it in person. However, due to weather, we've had a delay in the project itself. As we're looking at the forecast, maybe today might be the last day of rain before we start back up. We are certainly keeping our eyes on that and hope so. But we're now showing a project completion date with this rain delay in July 2024. Staff have reviewed the airspace capacity of Western Regional, and we have projected capacity well into March 2025. So we're sitting in a good position on capacity right now. And follow up to the water board notice of violation for the project. We are meeting with their executive director on April 11th. So looking forward to that conversation and laying out the path ahead for a dialogue on getting the plans permitted and having a open line of communication back and forth if they have any further comments or concerns that they can directly send it to us so there's no more delays there. The North Compost Pond, it's one of our lined compost ponds that we dug and lined in October 2022. It's substantially been complete since then. However, due to material delays and unexpected changes, we are still waiting for the electrical panel to power the pump. And that pump will allow FCC to shuttle water back and forth between the North and South Compost Pond to kind of basically balance out the ponds out as they get loaded up during the winter time of that compost leachate that goes in there. And finally, our biofiltro pilot project. As your board may recall, this pilot project was approved end of last year, and it's basically to treat our leachate to not have as much as an impact on the Roseville wastewater treatment plant, since they use UV sterilization to remove that tannic kind of discoloring component from our leachate stream before it gets down and could potentially affect their plant's performance. So staff entered in an agreement for a pilot project for 6 months. It's going to be a fascinating project itself. It deals with worm bed irrigation. So basically there's a media that worms create and bacteria as well, and the untreated water is sprayed over them as it percolates through that combination of the worms and the bacteria that the ecosystem that they build will pull out that nasty bit of component that we're trying to get, and at the end discharge a cleaner product. So we're having that on site for 6 months. Been in lockstep with Roseville and the county sewer on this project. We're all eagerly anticipating it, and that should arrive, that pilot unit, on April 8th.
Can I just, is it the South Placer Wastewater Authority or the City of Roseville?
The county sewer conveys it, and it gets treated by the Dry Creek City of Roseville treatment plant.
Yeah, it's the SPWA.
Okay, because I
Roseville
think it's an important distinction for us to call it SPWA. We have 3 SPWA board members sitting here, and I don't want anybody to think that it's the City of Roseville.
My apologies,
Okay.
Director.
Okay, I still thought you were still going. Okay, any questions for Will?
So I looked at the item on the Module 6 liner project and the State Water Board. So did I read that correctly, that we began the permitting process with them, never heard, and then got a notice of violation, and they never followed up with us?
Yes, so in the WDR, there is a time frame for when we need to submit plans in the permitting process for a new module. We have met and exceeded those timelines. We originally provided them comments in spring of the design plans in full. They provided comments later that spring, which we reviewed with our consultant, WSP, and provided comments to what we believe all substantial completion necessary for approval in September, and we haven't heard since.
And we kept moving forward with the project, never heard back from them, and then we get a notice of violation. I'm just clarifying what I read, because I just find that interesting. So thank you, and it looks like you're working through the process, but maybe that's one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing. I don't know, but
Yes, and it was
They do-
actually at the compliance division, the enforcement division of the water board suggestion that we have a meeting with the executive director that sits over both compliance and permitting to kind of discuss these kind of dialogues in detail on getting on the same page. So we're doing that on April 11th. So we're very excited for that meeting to clear up any misunderstandings.
Thank you, Will.
All right, any other questions or comments? Yes.
I have a question just because it feels like I should know this phrase, but I don't. Airspace analysis for shows sufficient capacity. Are we talking about in a different module? Just there's room to keep filling until. I'm trying to understand what that meant in there.
That is correct, Director. So we
Okay.
analyzed the airspace across Western Regional Sanitary Landfill, multiple modules on what is practically constructible with, a layered fill. And we do have airspace until March 2025.
Meaning we have room to fill up in that, what's currently
That
air.
is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions?
No, but maybe I might want to go see how the worms work when they come on site, because I think it's sort of fascinating.
Right.
You are welcome to come. We're having City of Roseville staff as well as county staff out to see it because this is a pretty unique project that we're excited for. It's cool.
Yeah.
I know, who would have thought worms would be cool?
I know,
Usually they're just a nuisance in my swimming pool.
Okay, moving along to item 7, consent agenda. Is there anyone that needs to pull anything from the consent? All right, anyone in the public
Nope.
that wants to pull anything? Okay, with that, is there a motion?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions? Number 8, action items, circular economy innovation competition.
Thank you, Chairwoman Landon. Tonight I'll be sharing a brief update on our Circular Economy Innovation Competition that's being managed by the Carlson Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. The Carlson Center launched the applications for this year's competition during Global Entrepreneurship Week in November of 2023. After initial review, 14 applicants were selected as semifinalists, with receiving additional business development support from the Carlson Center, including a pitch crafting boot camp. The semifinalists' innovations and a brief video pitch then went through a technical review by staff from the WATMA member agencies and the Carlson Center earlier this week to determine concept viability and assess their business strategies. Of those 14, 8 business concepts were selected to move forward to the next stage, the in-person pitch competition. The Carlson Center is currently confirming that all of the chosen finalists will be attending the competition, all of which are regionally located, so we're anticipating that all 8 will be able to participate. These innovations vary from researched ideas to prototypes to profitable operations, including entries from local Sac State and Sierra College students. The finalists will then have the opportunity to attend additional workshops and receive more mentoring from the Carlson Center leading up to the final pitch competition. The finalists' in-person pitch competition is planned to be held at the Growth Factory's Roseville Venture Lab in downtown Roseville on Wednesday, April 24th, beginning at 11 a.m. The Carlson Center has already confirmed that a representative from the Growth Factory and Sac State will be serving as judges, and the Carlson Center would appreciate at least one member of your board to serve as a judge on the judging panel to represent the Western Placer Waste Management Authority. We're requesting tonight that your board appoint at least 1 or 2 directors to the final judging panel. Lastly, I did receive an update on last year's winners, AgGen from the Carlson Center. Rosh and Amir are now juniors at UC Davis and have been working on a pilot project with UC Davis to create a more automated system that only needs to be serviced once a month instead of daily or weekly, which currently or prior to this it has been, which would work better for their busy college schedules and issues with reliable transportation to and from the WATMA. Last month, they received a $20,000 grant from VentureWell, a national leader in funding, training, coaching, and early investment that brings student innovations to market, and recently applied to a Columbia venture competition and are waiting to hear back. Additionally, they have been designing a more efficient breeding module for their black soldier flies, so the systems are entirely self-sufficient and self-renewing. They also submitted for a new patent and have built capacity in their units, now they are able to contain 10,000 larvae at once. In partnership with the Carlson Center, we're anticipating bringing Rosh and Amir back to the WATMA and to share an update with your board directly later this summer. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Well, thank you so much for giving us a follow-up. I love hearing how successful they've been. It's so amazing.
I know, it was nice to hear too. So
Yeah. Okay. Any questions or comments?
So I got to be a judge last year, but I'd be happy to do it again. But I'll yield to those who didn't get to be a judge last year if there's interest. And I know Chair Landon showed up last year just as a spectator, if I recall.
Yeah, and I have a conflict that day, so I'm happy to defer to someone else.
Okay.
I judged last year and I love this stuff. So I don't mind unless somebody else really wants to, but.
I have a conflict as well, so
I do have a conflict at work, which I could probably get out of, but if you want to do it, that would be, you guys could both do it. That would be great.
Well,
Yep.
I'm up for it.
Okay.
But,
All right.
I
All
just,
right.
you know,
Thank you both.
if somehow
How long
you know
it lasts?
it works that you want to do it.
Okay.
So I did also want to mention timing as well. The event itself starts at 11, but we're not anticipating that pitches will begin until noon, and we're anticipating that they'll go from noon to 2.
Oh.
The additional hour before is for lunch and networking.
Oh, well, that changes my conflict, but you guys can still do it. That's fine.
I do have
No,
one
it's fine.
question. Are you allowed to say who the finalists are? Which
Yes,
ones were-
I did, because I was going to say, I submitted this memo before we had chosen the finalists, and so I can share who the finalists are, or at least the finalists that the TAG have have chosen to move forward. So the first is Clean and Go. They're actually Sierra College students who were part of the I3 program last semester and worked in partnership with the WATMA. The next is Eco Builder, also Sierra College students, part of the I3 program. The next is Fabric Feed. That is actually one of our finalists from last year. They advanced their innovation and made it more applicable to the WATMA, and so they were chosen as a finalist again this year. The next is Fiber Global. Then Green Go, which is a Sac State student group. Next is Palm Bin. Then Sea Nails, which I didn't mention, I guess, in the memo, they are a UC Davis student. And then Sustainable Energy Inc.
I know.
Quite a few.
Hopefully they got a chance to come out to WATMA and see it before they pitch us. I remember last time there was a couple that clearly they don't know how our landfill works and how in the world they're going to get that material, and you know it was interesting.
Yes, yeah.
But very innovative. It was a lot of fun. I'm still stuck on the mealworm things. How they boosted the romance. I forgot, romantic music going or what?
Yeah, and I took that word directly from that email. So,
That's funny.
but yes, so they are now self-breeding.
That's right. Good for them.
Funny.
All right. So is there a motion, I guess, to appoint Director Albert and Director Halden?
I will move
Yeah.
that.
I'll second.
All right. All those in, I don't have to do a roll call, right? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? No abstentions? Okay. I guess next we will move into closed session. So can Ms. Schwab read us out? Or do I need to say something?
I'd learn the technology here. The board will now adjourn to closed session to consider 2 items. One is the conference with real property negotiator, and the other is public employment.
And Ms. Schwab, can you read us out?
I'm all excited and it's not working.
The Authority Board of Directors met in closed session considering the following items. On 9A, conference with real property negotiator. The board heard a report and provided direction on a 5-0 vote and requested that the interim executive director convey that direction. On item 9B, the board heard a report and provided the following direction. The board voted to approve the employment contract for the preferred candidate and authorized the chair to execute the same. This direction was given on a 5-0 vote. The board then requested that the interim executive director be authorized to commence procurement of insurance policies and deferred compensation plans subject to the board's final approval. That direction was taken on a 5-0 vote. The board then directed that the ratification of the employment contract be scheduled for the May WAMPMA date for final action. That concludes the report out of closed session.
Thank you. And with that, are there any upcoming agenda items from anyone? Requests?
Nope.
All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.